Guys, it finally came out. The mod that I've been waiting to play for over a year is officially released. The mod that got its popularity from its unique weapons, abstract boss fights, and stunning animations that make you feel like you're playing a different game entirely. You guessed it, the Starlight River mod. This mod has been in development for a long time, and there's really no surprise there given how awesome the mod looks. The only downside is that due to most of the developers being, and I quote, complete newbies to game development, the mod only has content till about pre-Wall of Flesh, which explains why the video is 50 days and not 100. Regardless, this mod was awesome and I hope you enjoy it just as much as I did. Just a quick note really quick before the video gets started, some of the quality of life mods don't work compatibly with Starlight River, so I only ended up using Starlight River mod and a little bit of recipe browser. Okay, that was it. Goodbye, the video's starting. Before I even started day one, I noticed that the menu screen is just awesome. Look at all these. They're so cool. Once I officially loaded into the world, I noticed that the flora looks much prettier, but despite that, I began mining wood and tearing it down. While mining wood, I found what I thought was a berry bush, but it's just a home for these little fellas. They're called slime berries. After getting what I thought was a whole bunch of wood, I began mining, and it was awful mining without Aurora excavator. It just took significantly longer. While mining, I found this pretty cool shack, and inside were barrels filled mostly with random potions, but there was a chest, and after opening it, it pretty much said, "Congratulations, this chest wasn't a mimic, you didn't die." So I now have to be wary of opening chests. Anyways, it gave me an ancient lens that allows enemies to glow and reveal others after receiving a critical hit. And it also gave me 5 random things and told me to choose 2 out of the 5, so I chose the barrier potions and dynamite. I then found a mushroom biome and it had, without a doubt, the biggest chest room I've ever seen. It's got 3 fucking floors, dude. I also noticed a little mushroom thing underwater, but died before I could even touch it. Once I had respawned, I made a little house, smelted some ores, and made my first modded weapon, the Double Cross. It shoots my 2 highest ammo slots as long as they're arrows, and it works super duper well. On day 2, I began exploring a bit to the left, and I found a desert with these weird monoliths that were literally everywhere. Right past the desert was a jungle, and since I knew I would die if I entered it, I teleported home to work on my house. I spent the rest of the day working on the house because I wanted a nice homey feeling. My idea is that my little shack will be above ground and I'll make and customize a room per NPC underground, or maybe I'll do pylons, I don't know. I continued building into the next day and I added a cute little roof for my house, but I'm debating on changing it from wood to stone. I then continued to do more mining, and while I was mining I found another shack and it was the same exact deal as the first one. But right past that shack I found this orange fruit looking thing, and when I hovered my cursor over it, it showed an image of a tornado. I tried to obtain this thing, but I just couldn't. I even made like a tungsten pickaxe to try and mine it, but to no avail. After a bit more mining, I came home and used some of the iron and tin that I got to make the blade saw, a weapon used for shredding enemies and trees. On day 4, I continued mining, just trying to find more life hearts, and afterwards I began exploring again to try finding anything new, because I was at the point where I had been playing for almost an hour and a half and I just hadn't really found anything. I was getting bored. I continued exploring for the rest of the day and found just about nothing, but on day 5 I found this house in the snow biome with some sort of statue in the middle. Upon right-clicking the statue, an Aurora's spirit came out and went straight underground and kinda just sat there. I also got a buff that pretty much told me to follow the spirit. The buff was supposed to increase my mining speed, but it decreased it significantly. This has since been patched. I began to follow it and it was going by excruciatingly slow. I was mining so unbelievably slow. And I ended up dying while following because I tried to mine with bombs to make things go faster. On my way back, I just kept dying, so I ended up using a gravitational potion to get back easier and also search for Cloud Islands in an attempt to get wings. On the Cloud Islands, I found some weird vial with a heart-looking thing in it, and when I hovered my cursor over it, it showed me another tornado. So I got to thinking that maybe I would need something to open or obtain whatever these things are. Once I was back, I began following the Aurora spirit again, and I ended up finding more houses along the way, each having another statue that would summon another Aurora spirit for me to follow. They also had chests that would help me with progression by giving me stuff like life hearts and mana crystals. But from one of these chests, I got a suspicious looking offering that tells me to drop it in prismatic waters to summon the Squidite's worship. I continued following the Aurora's spirit into the next day, and I ended up getting attacked by this demonic fucking mammoth thing called a Snooble. Whatever it is, I wanted no business with it. Along the way, I found this huge bubble that, upon further inspection, allows me to swim in it. I also found these smaller bubbles that, when broken, give me frozen Aurora chunks. Due to me getting sidetracked by all these bubbles, I lost the Aurora spirit and died trying to escape like 7 different enemies. Once I was back, the spirit led me to a glowing door, and once I was through, the entire game changed. It was literally like playing a different game. The game told me to put a block on this gap in the wall, and once I did, the floor opened, and a platform lowered me down. It took me down to an arena that had a pool of prismatic water at the bottom, and even though I knew I was going to lose, I threw the suspicious looking offering into the water and summoned the Aurorical. Once I obviously lost, I respawned and took a second to take in everything that had just happened because that was literally insane. On day 7, I went inside and sorted my stuff into all of these chests that I have because I can't have magic storage. And then I went into the attic and made the Pale Nail that summons a Pale Knight to fight for me, which I think is literally just a Hollow Knight. I also turned my Frozen Aura chunks into Frozen Aura bars and made the Frost Ball, a yo-yo that builds Aurora power, and when retrieved it converts that power into regeneration. I spent all of day 8 and day 9 working on another building that is meant for NPCs. I initially liked how it was coming, but eventually it just ended up looking like a dick. So I added the NPC rooms, and now it just looks like a dick with arms, but it's my dick with arms. On day 10, I spent all day mining looking for hearts, because I was at the point where I could start fighting bosses, but I just needed more hearts. Now on day 11, I did next to nothing other than a blood moon to get an item called Living Blood, which is used in a whole bunch of weapons. On day 12, I began breaking orbs of the corruption to spawn the destroyer and try and get at least a few shadow scales, but I ended up getting absolutely nothing. But what I did notice is that the Eater of Worlds has a lot more health than the Aurorical, which means it's probably supposed to be fought right after the Eye of Cthulhu. Afterwards, I went to go fight the Aurorical because I feel like I've done absolutely nothing since I started recording, and at this point I was an hour into my recording, and when I got there I realized I don't have a suspicious looking offering, and I was actually so pissed. On day 13, I made a fishing rod and began getting bait because the suspicious looking offering requires 4 fish. But a stupid ass goblin army attacked me, so I just ignored them and decided to go get a little bit more tungsten to make full tungsten armor. Now that I had this armor, I began fighting them. It was a long battle, but eventually on day 14 I defeated the goblin army. As funny as it is, as soon as I defeated the goblin army, another goblin army spawned. Literally as soon as the other one died. So I noped the fuck out of there and went to go find a few more life crystals. While mining, I saw something glowing in the wall, and when I mined to it, I got an exotic geode, which can be used for a couple of things like armor or a new bow. I also ended up finding this temple looking thing, and the statue in the middle summons these shadow enemies in waves. I ended up losing, but I went back and did it again with potions this time, and still lost, because the enemies just get harder and harder, and I decided I'd stop for now, but I'll be back. I finished off the day getting the rest of my life crystals. On day 15, I went back to the shrine and defeated those shadow enemies. From it, I ended up getting a dull blade that's used to craft a few equipables. I then started heading towards the corruption to find an altar in order to make a King Slime and Eye of Cthulhu spawner. Once I was done, I summoned a blood moon to get more living blood. The next day, I upgraded my boots all the way up to the lightning boots because I actually had an inklet of the wind right away. I was still doing the blood moon, and once it was done, I got 13 living blood, so now I have 21 in total. I ended up using 12 of those to make the blood bolter, a crossbow that converts wooden arrows into blood bolts. I ended up testing it on the King Slime, and it's pretty fire, but for some reason I didn't get a goodie bag from him. I even checked to make sure I was on an expert world, and I was, but I just didn't get it for whatever reason. Later that night, I defeated the Eye of Cthulhu, but still got nothing from it for whatever reason. I no hearts, no goodie bag, no nothing. I'm on expert mode. I don't know what's going on. So I ended up making a post in the Starlight River forum on Discord, so I guess I'll just have to wait and see what people say. On day 17 in the forum, somebody said that there's some cool shit in the underground desert, but after searching for a while, I found absolutely nothing. I then spent some time learning how to cook, because you can get these food drops from enemies, and then you can take like salt and shit, mix them all together, and it gives you cool buffs. On day 18, I defeated the Eye of Cthulhu again and figured out my boss issue. You see, the blood bolts from the blood bolter impale enemies and explode them on the surfaces, like it sends them flying and they just blow up in a huge pile of blood on the surface. So if the blood bolter is used for the killing blow on a boss, it's not going to drop anything, because the bolts can't send the boss flying. Now, patches have been coming out every day since the mod's release, so all the bugs that you may see here and in this entire video will most likely be fixed. But nobody's responded to my fucking forum post. Now that I'd figured out my issue and I actually had Demonite ore, I ended up making the Blood Amulet, an equipable that releases a homing bolt for every 25 damage I take. I wanted to continue making other equipment, but most of it needed topaz and I didn't have any, so I went to go look for some. Eventually I found some and I made the Holy Amulet and then combined it with the Blood Amulet to make the Pandora's Dagger. It releases discordant bolts that inflict stacks of volatile when projectiles graze by me. I also made the Sand Script, and it's a pretty basic but pretty good magic weapon that manifests blades of sand. The animation looks kinda lame, but I know that they updated it, so here's that. I also ended up making and using a bunch of mana crystals, and after using them, a fucking crow named Alekin appeared to me, and he had quite a bit to say. So I guess there is something under the underground desert. That was a crazy encounter, and I hope I see him again soon. He ended up giving me 1 starlight and an ability called Star Sight. It allows me to see the world for what it truly is. As soon as he left, an enemy with no name kept spawning, and when I use Starsight on it, it says it somehow bolsters nearby foes. After all of this, I summoned a blood moon to get more living blood in order to make more magic weapons, because obviously magic is the way to go. After fishing up the blood moon on day 19, I ended up with 21 living blood. I then finally decided to do some fishing, and while I was doing this, I kept using Starsight on things just to see what it would say. Once I thought I had enough fish, I went to the underground desert to continue searching for the Vitric desert, and what I found was, oh boy, I found this huge area with a whole lot of crystals and a whole lot of weird looking bugs that were exploding for whatever reason. This area was known as the Vitric Desert, and to the left of it I ended up finding a big structure with some weird looking person thing right on the outside of it. So the guy's name is Glassweaver, he's supposedly famous, and he has some trial for me to do, so I went inside to give it a shot. The enemies during this trial were fucking awesome. They like worked together somehow. I don't know, it was crazy. I'll show you guys in just a bit. On day 20, I went and tried to defeat the Eater of Worlds again, but I lost. So I headed to the dungeon to get a book, and I ended up turning that book with some living blood into the Gluttony, and it is a very pretty weapon. Oh my goodness. At this point, I had had enough of myself dicking around doing whatever, so I went to the snow biome, went down to the Aurorical arena, and made myself some calamari. Oh my god, dude, that was so close. That was so close. I was struggling there at the end. I don't have the wings. I need the wings. Oh my god, I was struggling there at the end. That was awful. That boss fight was absolutely insane. There were tentacles flying literally everywhere. From the Aurorical, I got a magic weapon called the Overflowing Urn, and it unleashes a torrent of chilling winds, and it works wonderfully against bigger groups of enemies. It works beautifully. I also got a ranged weapon called the Octogun, and it converts musket balls into these little Aurora ink balls, and both critical hits and kills cause tentapistols to sprout from my back and fire where my cursor's pointing. After evaluating my amazing loot from the Aurorical, I went down to the Vitric Desert to prove my worth to the Glassweaver. Oh my god, for this trial, I had no clue I was going to have to fight him. I thought it was just a minion, so that got pretty crazy towards the end there. He ended up giving me a forge key, which was to open some sort of temple on the right side of the Vitric Desert. So I headed over there, and once I opened the door, it was, wow, it's really cool inside. As cool as it was, I ended up getting murdered by a crystal that kept spawning enemies as soon as I walked in the door. Once I was back in the temple the next day, I walked away from the crystal so that it wouldn't spawn any more enemies and ended up in a room full of gears. Turns out that these gears are for a puzzle to open the next door into the next room, and I had to connect the gears in order to open it. After messing around with the gears for a bit, I did end up solving it. In the next room was another puzzle where I had to lead some sort of beam from one side to the other using these statues of swords and axes or whatever, but there were a bunch of things in the way, so I had to maneuver around everything, and it was kind of annoying. But eventually I did solve it and it opened up a door. After this door opened, it led me to the bottom of the temple, and on this floor there were a bunch of super duper cool looking statues and another annoying crystal. But in the middle of it all was the tornado logo I've been seeing everywhere. So I touched it, and this happened. I now finally had the Whirlwind ability. It allows me to dash and break specific barriers that are made of Vitric shards. With the Whirlwind, I proceeded to break my way back to the top and right out of the temple. I went to the top of the temple and tried breaking this crystal on top of it like I did with all the others, but it instead summoned an entire arena from the ground up, which was most likely for the snake thing Cirros that the Glassweaver was talking about. Unlike with the Aurorical, I did not summon the boss because not only am I not prepared, but because it requires a glass idol to summon. After all this crazy awesome stuff that just went down, I went home to figure out what gear I was going to use to kill this next boss. And I think I'm going to switch to range, but I'm still going to try out a bunch of the other like magic and melee weapons. I ended my day by grabbing a few more books from the dungeon to make myself a bookshelf. I used that bookshelf to make the Vitric book, a magic weapon that summons spikes on the ground that come up and attack enemies that walk over it. It was pretty good, but it doesn't really work on flying enemies, so I kind of scrapped it. Afterwards, I started the elevator because almost everything that can be made using the Vitric shards out of the Vitric desert also requires a magmatic core, and it looks like those things that I saw on the Sky Islands a while ago, but the only issue is that I can't reach the islands, so I need to make a gravitational potion, which requires fire blossoms. While doing the elevator, I ended up breaking a few of those orange apple looking things because I have Whirlwind now, and it gave me absolutely nothing. So I checked the Discord, and it turns out that while I was playing this, it currently was unused content, but I'm pretty sure now it like gives you stamina and stuff, but don't quote me on that. The construction of this elevator was going excruciatingly slow, so I decided to make a Vitric pickaxe, and it didn't help. Also, while doing this, I accidentally dropped my blade saw, and I watched as it fell right through the map. For whatever fucking reason. I never made a new one. After a bit of time, I stopped doing the elevator, but only because I hit lava, and when I came back up, a blood mood started, but I decided to fight all the way through it, and the overflowing urn is so fucking good against a whole bunch of enemies. It's so good. I finished the blood mood on day 23, and I also finished the haunted armor set, and the set bonus allows me to haunt magic weapons, which means I can pretty much make a magic weapon into a summon. Before I defeat Cirros and finish this mod, I wanted to test out a bunch of other classes, so I defeated the Eater of Worlds and used its scales to make the Radcula's Rapier, and it's a melee weapon that rapidly stabs enemies, leaves a stacking bleed, and it also allows me to teleport to the cursor while using right click. It is, overall, a weapon that I should have been using this entire time. I continued trying to get to hell on day 24, but I stopped when a meteorite landed and caused the entire earth to shake, so I went to go find out and check out what it was, but when I got there, it was just a normal meteorite, so I guess they just animated a different thing for the meteorite, which was kind of disappointing, to be honest. Afterwards, I finally got to hell, but I couldn't find a fire blossom anywhere, so I decided to just stack up to an island, and when I broke the thing, it gave me astro scrap, not a magmatic core, and the astro scrap is used to make some mid-ranged gear. The next day, on day 25, I was just at a loss for what to do, because I know I'm not ready to fight Cirros, but what else is there for me to do? I just couldn't figure out what to do. So I ended up doing a bunch of research, and it turns out that Moonstone can be obtained as a different variant to the meteorite, which means that my first meteor just dropped and I got super unlucky. Since I couldn't just cause a meteorite to fall, I decided to go fight the Aurorical a couple more times just to see what other drops it has, and on the first fight, I ended up dying, but it didn't despawn for whatever reason, so I came back and I finished the job. From this first fight, I got the Aurora crown, and it's a combat mount that summons an Aurora throne, and this throne lashes out whip-like appendages and right-clicks summons explosive Aurora links in it. It was so cool. I mean, it did kind of shit damage, but it was so cool. I defeated the Aurorical again on day 26, and I did it in one go this time, but I didn't get the melee weapon that I was really hoping for. I just got a repeat of all the other stuff I already had. Afterwards, I went back to the Vitric Desert to see if there's anything that I missed, but there really wasn't. The only thing that I missed were these magmites that were, for some odd reason, back where the Glassweaver is, and I ended up kidnapping them and turned one of them into a magmite in a bottle, which is a ranged weapon, so I'm using these cute little magmites as bombs, pretty much. I spent the morning of day 27 fighting the Eater of Worlds to try and make a meteorite land, and I read that if you do it between 12 AM and 4 AM, there's a higher chance, but I didn't end up getting one. Afterwards, I attempted Cirros just to see what it's like, and I obviously lost, but it doesn't seem too difficult. I just have to be ranged to be able to pull this off. I spent pretty much all day doing research on different ranged weapons and ranged armors and ranged equipment, and I decided to make the ranged stuff using the Astro Scrap. I ended up going back down to hell to get another fire blossom to create another gravitational potion because getting to those islands by building huge towers is just not practical. On day 28, I got sidetracked and began mining hellstone. Eventually, I ended up finding a few fire blossoms while doing this and made the gravitational potions and got all of the astro scrap that was necessary. I ended up making the Breacher armor set, and it buffs the range class and summons a spotter drone that charges with enemy kills, and once fully charged, it summons a orbital strike. I also at this point had a bunch of geodes, so I ended up making a geode bow, which causes a crystal growth to appear on enemies and does more damage when the growth is shot. It was pretty cool, but it was really shit because it only did a little bit of damage. I also made a bunch of scrap pods that I just have yet to use. I spent some time in the jungle the next day looking for a boomstick to make the scrap shot, but I never ended up finding one. After wasting pretty much my entire day, I headed to the dungeon to build the Skeletron arena. On day 30, I defeated the Skeletron, but I accidentally defeated it using the Blood Bolter, and I forgot to switch weapons, so I didn't get a goodie bag or hearts or anything, but I assumed that the dungeon would still be open and it would work, so I went in to get bones, but a dungeon guardian ended up killing me. So I think it's because of how the Skeletron died, and I'm just going to have to do it again at some point. Afterwards, I went home to buy the illegal gun parts to make the sand gun in order to make the soil gun, but I found out about a different weapon that also requires illegal gun parts. The Impact SMG, and it's exactly what it says. It's an SMG, and when you stop shooting, you throw it like a boomerang, and it blows up at enemies. And it works. It works beautifully. It shoots so fast. Oh my god. I then reforged it, and it got an extra 20% speed. I swear to god, this thing is faster than the Mega Shark. Later on, I went to the Vitric Desert to try out this gun on Cirros, but for whatever reason, the data for the Vitric Desert didn't save, so I ended up spending the rest of the day refighting Glassweaver and solving puzzles in the temple. For the next 2 days, I tried to defeat Cirros over and over and over and over and over, and I just could not beat him, no matter how hard I tried. I couldn't even get to the final part, was how hard this was unnecessarily hard. I even checked the Discord to see if I had to fight any other bosses before Cirros, but it said that Cirros is for post-evil bosses. So Cirros is right after like the Eater of Worlds and Brain of Cthulhu, and that is just absolute bullshit. I could beat the Wall of I could beat the Wall of Flesh right now. On day 33, I decided that I obviously cannot defeat Cirros, so I spent the morning of that day fighting enemies during a blood moon to get money and reforge my gear all to warding. I wasn't getting coins fast enough, so I then spent the rest of the entire day in hell breaking vases to get coins, and I ended up getting quite a bit actually. On day 34, I began researching what other equipment I should end up making, and I found this cursed item called Hermes' Vow, which gives a massively increased acceleration and movement speed, increased jump height and max movement speed, but at the cost of being unable to use wings, which wouldn't even matter because I would be using the boots and not the wings. The issue with this was that I had to make another gravitational potion to go up to the islands and grab a pair of wings for Hermes' Vow, but this time I had Fire Blossoms, but I did not have a Blinker, so I had to go find one of those. Eventually I found one, made the potion, and set out to find fledgling wings. I ended up searching the rest of the map that hadn't already been explored, and despite finding another island, I did not find the wings. They're just not on my world, and since I believe in the one character, one world bullshit, I ended up giving up on Hermes' Vow. Afterwards, I researched a bit more, and the only other equipable that I found that might be useful was the glass arrowhead. It causes arrows to shatter into glass shards upon contact, but that would mean I can't use the Impact SMG, and I'll most likely be stuck with using the Blood Bolter. I spent the rest of the day reforging my equipment. On day 35, I began trying to defeat Cirros again, but I was still getting absolutely nowhere, and it wasn't even my gear that's causing me to lose, it's that there are so many projectiles to dodge, and I just get hit by every single one of them. I ended up giving up and closing the game for a bit, but when I loaded it back up, I saw that the Impact SMG got significantly nerfed. The game updated, got significantly nerfed. It now has a lower fire rate and does less damage. So I had to find another gun to use or something. I ended up spending the rest of the day trying to defeat Cirros with the Impact SMG, and it just was not working. At about 7 AM on day 36, I came to the understanding that I just wasn't going to beat it. Not yet at least, so I decided to head to the dungeon and try to defeat the Skeletron correctly this time, but I lost because the Blood Moon was happening at the same time and I just kept getting hit by all the enemies. On day 37, I finished dealing with the Blood Moon to get a bit of extra money. Once it was over, I made the decision that, when in doubt, become a summoner, because I just suck at this game. I'm pretty sure plenty of people have said that, so I ended up making the Tin Coil, a whip that strikes nearby enemies with static electricity, and I grabbed the Aurora Bell. It's a weapon that I forgot to tell you guys about way back from the Aurorical, and if you hit it with a whip, it like dings and hurts enemies. And I then headed for the dungeon. As soon as the fight started, I knew going summoner at this point was a horrible idea, so I switched back to range mid-fight, and then ran out of ammo. On day 38, I tried really hard to defeat the Skeletron using my super shitty summoner items, but it just didn't work out. I ended up losing. I then slept through the entire day and made sure that I had plenty of ammo and defeated the Skeletron. I spent all of day 39 and day 40 in the dungeon. Why, you may ask? because there are these new enemies called Crescent Casters, and when killed they dropped uncharged magnets. Now these uncharged magnets then cause charged skeletons to spawn, and when killed they convert one of the uncharged magnets that are in your inventory into a charged magnet. Now these charged skeletons rarely spawn. They rarely spawn. It took so long. But once I had 6 charged magnets, I went home and made the Grey Goo, a summoner weapon that summons a swarm of nanomachines to devour my enemies. On day 41, now that I had the summoner weapon that I knew would change the tide of this battle, I fought Cirros for the final time. That fight was literally so close. I got so close to losing that fight. I literally ended up dying from an enemy right after the fight. It was crazy. From Cirros, I got a ranged weapon called the Needler. It sticks spikes to enemies to build up heat, and once the enemy becomes overheated, they explode, dealing tons of damage. I also got another summoner weapon called the Recursive Focus. It summons an infernal crystal that locks on enemies, ramping up damage over time. And it doesn't say it on the weapon, but it also doesn't consume a minion slot, which was pretty cool. With this new loot, I tried to fight Cirros again, expecting to win, but I lost. But you know what, I won't let that be the end of it, so I went home and made the Vitric armor. Now this armor looks way cooler, but it was actually worse than the armor I had before, since it gave me one less defense and the set bonus is just for bows. On day 42, I'm in a ranged weapon called the Magmatic Coach Gun. With right click, I can throw out crystal bombs which explode in chain reactions, and firing at one of these bombs detonates it prematurely for much more violent results. With this new, beautiful, godlike weapon, I went back down to the Vitric Desert and defeated Cirros one final time. But this isn't the end of the video, because not only did they add all this stuff for the base game, but they added a new mode, a boss rush mode, called the Armillary Trial. Okay, we're doing the Armillary Trial. Oh, I can delete this bitch. Okay. Alright, we're doing the Armillary Trial. Armillary Trial. Boss Rush, Boss Blitz, and Starlight Showdown. Theoretically possible. Okay, we're gonna start with the Boss Rush. Okay, I have all my shit still. Do I just right click that? Hold on, I'm gonna get my shit down. I'm gonna get that going. Get that going. Oh, I guess I just break this then. Is it supposed to be taking this long to do? Oh my gosh. Man, it's just a long time. Everything does 1 damage. What the hell? Okay, well, we'll get this done. You know, eventually. Alright. Yep. What the hell? Dude, this is sick. This is sick. What the hell? Oh, alright, and we're just into it. Okay. Yo, let's go to Aurorical. And there we go. Alright, does it just take me right to the next boss? It totally does. Yo, it's good, Glassweaver. Okay, wait, why I'm... Alright, game's a little bugged. Boom, just like that. Alright, next boss. Here comes Cirros. And I remember exactly. See, why am I like up like that? Oh, it's awful. Okay, it's a little broken. It's a little buggy, but just go over the platform and... Come on, bro. Just die. You're done for right here. I'm just gonna stay in place. Yeah! Boss rush completed! Right, let me grab these hearts. Boom. What the hell is this? Boss rush goal. Do I just... Oh, I just grab it. Okay. Alright, let's see my score. That's a pretty good score, I'd say. If I do say so myself. 36 hits taken. That's honestly not a lot. Alright, that was pretty good. Let's try Boss Blitz this time. Heal 200 life between bosses. Expert difficulty. Game moves. Okay. What did I get? Well, time moves more quickly for you. Time briefly moves more slowly for you after being hit. Do I use it? Time moves more quickly for you. Time briefly moves more slowly for you after being hit. You can try it. Oh, wow. Okay, was that just like time? Or is that just me? It says time moves more quickly for you, so I think that's just me. Alright, let's get my boys out here. Come on out here, boys. Where's my thing? Here's my... Nope, that's the double cross. Alright, let's get it. Oh, wait. Time moves way more... Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Time moves fast. I think it's just time in general. Dude, oh, my God. Oh, my goodness. Oh, I can't do this. I gotta take this thing off. Jesus. Wait. Oh no, everything's just moving fast. What? Okay. Okay, Okay. Ouch, dude, everything hurts. Holy shit. Why is it so fast? Why is it so fast? Oh my goodness. What is going on? Is it because I equipped that thing, or is this just how the difficulty is? This is impossible. Dude. Alright. I can't even heal in this mode, so give it a shot. Yeah, I saw people doing this like on the Discord, but using end game like equipment. Like they beat the game on, they beat the regular game and had all of this fucking like Luminite shit, and they were still failing. This doesn't seem that much faster. Holy shit, what? This is how it is on Master Mode? You're joking. Alright, well, I'm just gonna leave this up to you guys. I'm just gonna leave this up to you. You guys can go ahead and try this out for yourself. Thank you, goodbye.